Let's take a look at the Friday papers. We're joined now by foreign policy writer Thom Woodroofe. Thom, good morning.
How are you?
And you're starting off with that photograph, which is yet another example of what seem to be continuing tensions at the top. Let's have a look at the Herald Sun. They've got that shot of Rudd-Gillard and Kevin Rudd making the long, long walk in silence.
In fact, we're going to do all photos today, which is a bit different. But yeah, this photo, you've been doing the rounds, and obviously you interviewed Rudd just before the half hour. But I don't think this story, which is probably part of sort of the News Limited campaign about that we've seen in the recent weeks about Rudd's travel, we've seen it about yesterday about in the Canberra Times about his ambition to come back and so forth. It fuels into that, but really it's a bit of a non-story. I mean, it's a photo of two people walking in a corridor. The fact they didn't engage with each other in the corridor but then went into a meeting is probably a good thing, I would have thought, and goes against the grain of the story anyway, that they are in fact talking rather than they're not. So a bit of a beat up, I think.
It was a graphic way of telling the story of the tension between the two. They obviously talked, screaming match or not, they talked in the cabinet room, but the fact that they could barely acknowledge each other or even look at each other, as this photo so graphically illustrates.
But as I say, I mean, they then subsequently went into a private meeting together. I mean, so
that was after the meeting, I believe. The photo was taken. They emerged, which could have underscored how tense that meeting was.
Yeah, perhaps. I think the bigger issue here is that the two major foreign policy issues that are in Australia at the moment, which are live cattle exports and its impact on our relations with Indonesia, and asylum seekers either going to Malaysia, Nauru, or Papua New Guinea, or even Vanuatu, as floated yesterday, are two issues that Kevin Rudd has not really involved himself in at all as foreign minister. I think he's actually doing quite a good job as foreign minister, and he said yesterday he wants to be one of the best, but not the best, he actually said, which was strange to not set himself that ambition. But it's just strange that the two issues which are so central to this government's narrative and focus at the moment, he's not involving himself in.
Well, that was sort of the heart of what I was trying to get to in speaking to him this morning. And I guess that's why you see a photograph like that, because that would have been, and I think the interview bore this out, clearly that would have been quite a tense conversation. The relationship with Indonesia is one of our most important, and this has really put it in peril. And as foreign minister, you would expect him to have some rather strong views on that.
You would.
And I reckon that those strong views were clearly expressed in that meeting.
Yeah, and even indeed in caucus beforehand several weeks ago. But as I say, I mean, he hasn't involved himself in the issue at all, really, publicly.
Do you think he should have?
Probably. You would have thought that at least him or even the agricultural minister would be dispatched to Indonesia pretty quickly, and that's generally what you expect in these sort of circumstances, and hasn't happened.
I put that to him as well, and he said that was just, normal. Just a situation normal, that they just do it on the phones. So.
Hardly. I mean, it goes completely against his travel regime if everything can be done on the phone.
Speaking of travel, the Age has a story on various MPs going to a lavish Indian wedding.
Yeah, very quickly. A great story in the Age. Julie Bishop and Barnaby Joyce went to this lavish Indian wedding at the start of the week, courtesy of Gina Reinhardt, the mining magnate. I think the best part of this story is the quotes from Barnaby Joyce, who obviously was right in his element there in the middle of Bollywood. He called the groom a sort of Indian version of Brad Pitt. I think the only failing in this story by the media is that they failed to get a photo of Barnaby Joyce, hopefully in local gear there.
That would have been a good get.
But he vowed to reciprocate the favour if the groom and the bride ever visit Australia.
I just love that the wedding invitation, if we can just get that graphic up again very quickly, the wedding invitation it makes it really look like it's a poster for a Bollywood movie. There it is on the left. Two became one, starring. It's really brilliant.
Some great wedding planning.
I don't know whether we should put a graphic content warning out for this next item from Vanity Fair, Tom.
Yeah, so yesterday, I'm very disappointed the Australian media didn't pick up on this, but yesterday as the Republican primaries continued the ramp up to the Republican primaries played out, a photo appeared that was suggested to be Newt Gingrich on the famous Greek island of Mykonos the other week on this now infamous journey he took with his wife. The photo turned out not to be him and just to be a regular person on his holiday, presumably. But I think it's bad news for Gingrich because if you remember back to the Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama duel for the Democratic nomination. A photo emerged at the time of Barack Obama in Hawaii, bare-chested as well, which actually worked very well for him in the end. So disappointing that it wasn't Gingrich.
Now, what's wrong with Newt Gingrich being shot in a bathing suit?
Oh, well.
What is the issue here?
nothing particularly.
There's no
but
Barack
it's just-
Obama.
Yeah.
I think that's one issue.
No, look, I'm hoisting my flag yet again. I do not get this, how people jump up and down whenever they see male politicians in a bathing suit, whether it's Speedos or boardies. Everyone seems to get their knickers in and not literally about this.
Well, maybe particularly here
Men
with
like
Abbott.
women have strange and different and interesting shapes. Leave them alone.
But Vanity Fair had a great piece for Trent with this, which said there are 5 cycles that a reputable news editor goes through when photos like these emerge as to what they do with them. And photos of presidential candidates and even presidents in the late 20th century were very common in their speeding outfits. I mean, everyone would recall Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton dancing on the beach.
Yes.
John F. Kennedy had his shirt off probably more than he had his shirt on. There's a whole range
and
of
other
these
parts of
photos.
his clothing, yeah.
Exactly. So far from obscurity, but interesting that wasn't picked up here.
Yeah, okay, but I'm just filing this one under.
Okay.
Leave the man alone. Let him have a holiday in his
Point taken.
bathers.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good. It's out there.
And the Atlantic magazine online you're looking at as well. What's this picture?
Yeah, Atlantic's got a fantastic photo gallery. I'd highly recommend everyone has a look at, which is basically there's probably about 20 photos there of the various homemade weapons of the Libyan rebels, and the engineering that's going on behind developing these is phenomenal. Al Jazeera had a great report on it the other day, actually. I mean, they're literally turning sort of downed aircraft missile tubes into shoulder-launched missiles. There's a batch of Molotov cocktails, which is probably a little bit more rudimentary, but they're literally engineering students and former sort of lorry drivers with engineering experience that are doing this stuff and probably teaching the Western military some good cost-saving measures, I would have thought.
They're getting a little bit of NATO air support, of course.
Yeah, of course, which is how they're getting the downed aircraft.
Yes, that's
missile
right, yes.
tubes.
The raw materials.
Yeah.
Great photo gallery.
A little bit of help there. Nice to see you, Tom.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.